Welcome back, and in today's video or in this series I am going to show you how we can create this application with test-driven development. So this application is pretty simple. It is actually loading from the Rick and Morty API on every single random character, and you can see that it will fetch the JSON and basically decode and map things and display to the screen. And we can see that we actually have one character here and some information over here, and if we randomize things you can show that the character is changed. And of course we have some kind of loading over there to show that the UX when we actually fetch the data and display to the screen. So I think that's a pretty simple application, and I think that's a pretty good idea to demonstrate how test-driven development applied in iOS development in general. So without further ado, let's get started. Xcode project. So let's go to Xcode and let's create the base project first. Let's go and create a new project. I'm gonna use the multi-platform app, and I'm gonna name it like a random character app here, and make sure we are check this include test because we are going to use that test targets anyway. So let's next and save it somewhere. Make sure that we are in a source control. So let's create and wait the project is being configured, and here we can see that the project is already created. And since we are using multi-platform app, we basically can choose either we are run on the iOS platform or in the macOS platform. So I'm gonna run in the macOS platform at the moment, and let's try to build the app and let's see whether everything is configured. Okay, we are successfully building the app. That's pretty good. And let's move to, for example, the iPhone 14 here, and let's command U and let's see if we are actually good to go on the base project. Well, while we are loading, we actually can see that we randomly have like two clones of iOS simulator. What happened is the current Xcode configuration is trying to run the test in parallel. So if we want to keep running, hold on. So for example, if we want to keep running on the single device, we can configure it later. So let's try and let's see what happened in this unit test. You can see that if we press the command U here, it is actually trying to executing this target here, which is the unit test target, and also the UI test target, right? But in the very first part of the video, we are going to doing some of the networking. So I don't think we need to do some kind of UI testing over here. We can delete that actually. So you can see that also when we press the command U, the test feedback is really slow. So that's why I like to disable the UI test at the very beginning, and then maybe we can add that later with a different configuration. So without further ado, let's go and stop the running task here, and let's configure things. First, we want to disable the UI test. So we can go to our scheme, the manage scheme, and we can go to the manage scheme, select that, and there is the task here over here, and you can see that we have like test plans. Now this is pretty new in our latest Xcode. I'm using Xcode 14.3, I guess. Yes, correct. And in this Xcode, we are defaultly using test plan. And if we want to disable the task here, we can go to this arrow, click it, and you can see that we actually have like two targets here, two task plans actually, and both are executed in parallel, right? The first, I'm going to delete this one, which is enable this one, and that's going to prompt out the some kind of custom test plan. We can save that. And in this custom test one, we can also configure the execution so that it will not clone the simulator. And then we still need to delete the UI test because we don't use that anyway. So let's go to project navigator, select your UI test folder here. We can just delete there and move to trash. and also this target, because I believe this target is the UI test target, right? So let's remove that. And here we don't have the UI test at the moment. So let's close the simulator here, and let's see. Hopefully, if we press the command U, which is running the test, we are not having issue with cloning, and we are not actually having the UI test, which brings us to very fast feedback for the unit test. All right, that's pretty great. Another things to improve is if we still want to improve the test, the test execution, we can run on the Mac or a simulator. So there you go. We can command U, and let's see. Okay, there you are. The test is finished. And let's run again, and that should be blazing fast at the moment, right? That's correct. So that's the first configuration. And in the next couple of minutes, we can go and deep dive into the networking feature using test-driven development. So this is the setup, and let's commit the setup here. If you want to commit, then we can go to the Xcode and there is source control commit, or you can go with the shortcut, which is the command option C, and you can see that we can commit things. I'm gonna comment something like configure the base project, right? All right, so the base project is already configured, and right now we can create some kind of networking layer, but I want to do that on a different branch, right? So let me do that on a different branch. Where is it? Here we can go to the source control navigator here and choose the repositories and expand this one, and in the branch we can create a branch from the main, and the branch name will be kind of feature the networking, right? And let's go to the feature networking and switch to the branch. Switch to the branch. That's pretty good. Now we are in the feature/networking branch, and now we are ready to go to do the test-driven development on the networking branch. All right, so what we want to do is we can create oh, we can actually delete this. I forgot to delete this. Let's delete that here. Yep, let's commit the change. Remove UI test. All right, so now we can try to start the test-driven development here. Before we deep dive into test-driven development, I want to introduce the networking library that we are going to use, which is actually Moya. So if you're not familiar with Moya, Moya is some kind of networking abstraction on our iOS project. We can go to the Moya GitHub. You can see that some kind of nice documentation providing by them. So it's basically like some kind of like networking layer that is provided by them with their own way of architecting the layer. And luckily, it comes with the easy way to test. So don't worry, I'm gonna go for that in this video. So the goal is right now is try to install Moya. If you guys want to install that, you can go to the this one. You can copy this dependency, and let's go in Xcode, and I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. And you can see in the file, and there's add package. First, you can go straight in Moya here, type Moya, or if you cannot find, we can just copy and paste the Git directory from the Moya repository, and you can select Moya and make sure that you are choosing the right dependency rule and add it to the correct project. And let's add, and it is going to be and let's choose I'm gonna choose Moya first, and then probably in the future of this playlist I'm gonna migrate to the combine. But right now let's use simple async await, and let's deal with the combine later, but we can safely check this combine. So let's add the package, and let's see if we are still good to go. Let's command who again and make sure that everything is working, hopefully. All right, perfect. Everything is still working, so let's commit again, install Moya. All right. Now what we're going to do is we are basically want to start the test-driven development, right? So I'm gonna start with this file. I'm gonna delete that because I don't use this, and let's create a new file here. And I'm gonna use the Swift file, and I'm gonna use the unit test case classes, and this class I'm gonna name that my component, which is the some kind of character or remote character service task here. And I'm just gonna create that file, and yep, let's remove unused code over there, and let's try to test and make it fail over here. And let's force that into fail, and let's press Command U and see. Hopefully we are in a failing test, and which is pretty good. It's a very first step on the test-driven development. Now we need to have like some kind of information on how the API is going to be looks like. So we can go to the Chrome here. Let's go, and we can go to the rickandmortyapi.com. They are providing very good API here, and let's go to the docs, and we are going to use the REST API for here, and they have like some kind of base URL, and the API that we're going to use is the character here. But let's first seeing what kind of characters over here. So basically it's trying to returning some kind of result here, and it has some kind of like array of object, and this is these characters, and we know that each of the character has IDs, right? This is the second IDs, and one is the third IDs, and we can see that we have like some kind of huge amount of number of characters, so that I believe we can just copy the ID and add that to the character path. So let's say we want to fetch the first character, would be like this, and this will be the exact response that we need. And for example, maybe in the last character would be like 826, I believe. Yep, this is the last character. Yeah, basically that's the last character. Maybe I just want to know what happened if we are not found a character. Example, this one. Okay, this is the error message. Okay, that's cool. So how do we handle this kind of character? First, we know that we can fetch a character, right? If in the success case we can fetch character, and if another success case, we know that we can fetch a character but not found, and we know that for example we can success but the JSON is not valid, for example a different format JSON, and we know that for maybe we can get a success case with 200 response, right, with for example an empty JSON, and maybe we got a failure case when we fetch because of the timeout or something happened in the server, right? So these are the cases that we want to cover, and let's start with the simplest one. I think this one is very simple. So let's go ahead, and first we want to load from the remote character service, and what we want to do is basically to be able to returns some kind of timeout error on network error, right? So how do we kind of test our component here? So in here we already have the component name, so we can create the SGT, which is the system under test, and that component, and somehow we need to later inject the behavior of the remote character service later, and then we need to call the load, right? And we are basically expecting that it is actually return some kind of error, right? So we can try to assert that it is actually throwing an error in here. Alright, so basically this is the design of our API, and so when we try to look at the Moya documentation here, because I believe they have some kind of a specific way of or tutorial how can we test the Moya. So we can easily find on Moya testing over here, and you can see that there is this file or this link over here. Let's click and we can see that this is how we can test Moya. So what I want to do is basically to copy here. So let's try to copy and paste here. So basically the idea is to do some kind of preparation or setup here, and we got the stopping provider, and then we can inject the Moya provider to our remote character service so that our remote character service will be act as we define over here, right? So what we are going to define over here, basically I want that to return some kind of timeouts, and the way how to do that is basically trying to playing around with the sample response closure over here. So in here, if you see the example, it is actually trying to returning some kind of data and with the status code, and this one is on a different status code with some kind of different data. And in here we basically have another way of defining that. Oh, the completion is not correct, so let's fix the code completion first. Moya here, and we can define some kind of either the response is very generic one, and this one is pretty straightforward with the response code, and this one is with the error. So what we can do is we can try to utilize this network error here, and let's pass some kind of, I don't know, some error, ns error, and we still don't have this IP service. And let's create, but I'm gonna rename it first. I think I'm gonna rename with the character target type, and this one is gonna be the same character target type. And let's create the target type, which is a character target type which conform to the Moya.target type, and we can omit of this one. And let's build, and you can see that compiler is helping us to implement the other protocol steps, which is the some computer properties. And what we can do right now, we can use the Control Shift and click on every single computer properties, hit space and open, close bracket and close it, and enter and escape. That's how we can edit in a multiple line at the same time. So we need to tell what is actually the base URL at the moment. So we know that the base URL based on its own documentation here, it is this one, the base URL. So we can use this, copy, and return some kind of URL with the string of this URL. And of course, we need to do the exclamation mark up here. And the path on this case is actually slash character here. So what we can do is we can just return the slash character, or in Moya we usually do some kind of switch case, switch self, and if we basically want to fetch characters or the load character at the given ID, we can just return that path. Let me type character with the given ID of here. So that's how we can define. And now our enum case, we don't have this case, fetch character. All we can do is we can create the case, fetch character with the given ID right here. And this one will be finished to implement. And here we can do another switch case as well. So let's try to switch self. If we are trying to fetch the character, we need to return the get, and we don't need this. And what is this task? I believe we can just return request plain, because we don't have any additional data. we're only getting things, right? And this header, let's just return nil because I'm not going to use any header information on my request. And I believe that's how we can set up our target type right here. So let me try to command you. Oh, I believe I still have a different syntax here, so let me fix that. Let id there, let's hit command u, and the error for this block is gone. And let's try to look what actually happened in here. We still need to have some remote character service, right? And let's try to define the remote character service, and we can use struct remote character service, or class is fine, either class or struct is fine. Let's say remote character service, and this service is gonna be having provider as dependency injection. So what we can do is we can copy the dependency, and we can type dependency here. Provider is equal to Moya provider, and we can generate the initializer by right click refactor and generate member-wise initializer. Let's go ahead and let's move it to the bottom here. All right, now we still need to have the load method. So let's create the load method here. And let's see if the compiler is trying to helping us. So I think that's pretty much good. And let's try to run the unit test. There we have a failing test, which is pretty good. The test is guiding us to shape our architecture here. So now we need to somehow throw some kind of error, right? So what we can do is we need to throw some kind of error over there. And let's command u, and we know that the function is not throwing. So what we need to do is we need to mark the function as throwing. So let's command u again. This is still failing because we don't have try. Let's try again, and will succeed, and the test is succeed. Now we know that we can create some kind of covering this timeout scenario if we're trying to return this network error in a very simple way. And of course, the implementation is not finished yet because we are forcefully throwing an NS error here. But gradually in the unit test, if we follow the test-driven development and covering many scenarios over here, basically we can evolve our code into more and more robust way based on the test requirement, because we are basically using the test-driven development. And since it is green state, I think it is safe to say that we are good to commit. So let's commit, and let's see, basically we can return error on timeout error, right? And now what I want to refactor is maybe I can go and do some kind of indentation over here, because in test-driven development, if we are already past the green state, it's time to refactor. And I think it is a good idea to refactor this one. So fix indentation is going to be good. Fix indentation. Now, as I said earlier, I want this one to return some kind of custom timeout error, right? And now it is not asserting whether we are returning either timeout error or not, right? So what we need to do is we want to some kind of specify what kind of error that we are throwing, and make sure that we are asserting that error is actually equal to some kind of timeout error, right? So what we can do at the moment is basically trying to do some code over here so that it can return some kind of timeout error. But of course, we want to assert that correctly. So we can try to expand this one. Let's see if we can do something like this, and hopefully we are catching some kind of error, and we are asserting that error that we got, it is actually inside this one, is gonna be equal to some kind of timeout error. But this timeout error is gonna be an enum from this type. So remote character service dot error time out error. So this is gonna be like the architecture that we have for this specific error. So let's try to run the unit test, and of course we don't have this specific error.time error. So it's time to create that. So what we can do is we can define the error, which is actually the Swift.error, and one case of that is the timeout error over here. And if we run a test, the compiler is telling us that the type is different. So what we can do is we can just cast that into some kind of specific remote character surface error. So let's run the test again and let's see. Right, it is crashing. Why? Because this error is basically not as this specific type of error, right? Because we are basically throwing the NS error. So what we can do right now to make the test pass is basically trying to return the timeout error directly. So let's try to run the test again, and let's see. Right now we can have like green test, and since it is green, it is really safe to commit things. Right. So here we can do is throw timeout error. All right, we can commit. Now what we need to avoid is this one, because it is really annoying to have like unit tests that is actually stopped from being executed. So what we can do is we can try to either using e-flat and for example if we can get some kind of error as this one, if flat error is actually error as this one, and then we can try to assert that over here that error should be equal to the timeout error. Otherwise we just need to fail with the given error, right? So the error message would be like something like expecting timeout error, got another error instead. So let's hit Command U and see maybe if we are not breaking anything. That's pretty good. And let's commit again. Specify error assertion. All right, right now we are pretty much good to go. I think we can move on to the next task. This one is finished. Maybe we can check this, right? And maybe we can start to move on this empty JSON scenario. As for now, we have done many things: set up the base project, configure the scheme, some basic test-driven development, and in the next video, it will be much more interesting. We'll go to play around with test-driven development to create another networking parsing response. So stay tuned, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video. Bye.